Welcome to UNCAGED. Today we're speaking with David Cass. It's great to have you on the show. I mean, we're going to be talking about something that is really interesting and something that I think is really probably not fully understood right now. David is the managing director and the chief information security officer of GSR, which is a crypto trading firm. And we'll talk a little bit about what GSR is working on and how they're shaping that whole world right now. We'll also be talking about the broader information security space, which blockchain plays a role, but certainly there's a lot of other elements to it. And so David will take us through and tell us, how safe are we? Hopefully we're safe, David. Hopefully we're getting there. But before we get there, David, tell us a little bit about you and your career.
Sure. Longtime financial services CISO, and GSR is actually a crypto market maker. So we're not a trading company in the sense of, not doing retail or things like that, but we can get into that more later. But I've spent most of my career in financial services or in technology, from that aspect of it. I was fortunately one of the early adopters of kind of the cloud first strategy. So I got to help bring a public company early on to the cloud when cloud was pretty nascent, and I kind of look at that evolution as it continues into crypto, as looking at digital assets, how it changes security, and really what's coming next.
That's amazing. And I know that you've been able to look at these challenges from multiple perspectives, right? Which is, I think, probably critical to handle the challenges that we face today, right? I mean, from working at the Federal Reserve to now being out there. Tell me a little bit about what you and the team are working on at GSR.
So I think, kind of as you mentioned, as a crypto market maker, we're part of the ecosystem that helps bring some of these new and innovative solutions, to the forefront essentially, and helps get them able to trade. And I think, the other component, as you mentioned, of having been on the regulatory side, being in crypto, historically has mixed, I guess, sentiment from the regulatory space. And we're really looking at it as, regulations are coming, realistically. Even when I was at the Federal Reserve, we looked at it as the category of digital assets is pretty much here to stay. So now it's really looking at, how do you regulate it and what's the right regulations? And how do you bring the safety and soundness principles that a lot of the large financial institutions are already guided by into this space to help it continue to develop and evolve?
I mean, there was a lot of noise, certainly in the early parts of 2020, certainly through the pandemic, a lot of discussion about crypto and, digital objects and smart contracts. And certainly we saw the whirlwind stories of big fortunes made and big fortunes lost. And now we see kind of ourselves stepping into a new world, I feel, right? I mean, we've seen announcements of Bitcoin exchange traded funds being put out there. Are we now at the time where normal investors perhaps can start approaching this more seriously?
Yeah, so I think you're correct that it now is really starting to be a time where normal, investors, as far as a broader public, can start looking at these instruments. And again, a lot of different governments are starting to bring regulations into the space, in order to kind of foster that whole safety and soundness. As you have new financial instruments, over the years, regulations tend to run behind. But as they get wider adopted, I guess wider acceptance, the regulation tends to come with it. So now it's really, trending in the right direction, I would say, from everything that I've seen in the marketplace. I suspect more regulation is coming, and we're looking for more clarity, at least within the US. But other countries are, I'd say, probably a little bit ahead of, bringing the regulations that they want to see as this becomes part of the financial marketplace.
I think everyone is for some form of regulation, but the matter, I suppose, is how it's implemented and whether it's done in a way that's it's done fairly to move things forward. And it's also wonderful. Sometimes I see bankers talk about the space and the things that they were saying in 2019 and 2020 are now shifting, and their language seems to be more open and more kind of like, oh, well, we need to consider this. We need to be open to these new ideas. So I think all those things sound good. But when you look out in the market, what are the kind of hot topics that you and the GSR team are focused on right now?
Well, I mean, I'd say continuing to help, you know, be a positive influence in the marketplace. I'm fortunate to be, part of GSR that has a, long-standing good reputation in this place, in this space. Because as you mentioned, I'd say not all players in the crypto space are created equal. From that perspective, so I'm fortunate to be, a member of a team that actually is recognized as one of the better players in the industry. And I think, there we continue to really focus on how do we still foster innovation in this field? How do we still, get exposure to the new token projects that are out there and the new market making opportunities? And really, how do we contribute to, making crypto, a more safe and sound environment? Everybody that's part of GSR actually is, very skilled and comes from the outside financial services world. So this isn't anybody's first foray into the financial field, fortunately.
Yeah, and I find the whole field quite interesting. I mean, my older son, who is a sophomore in college, is he's almost philosophically excited by the potential of what's happening in the crypto markets. I say philosophically because it is a different way of thinking about finance, and it's quite interesting. I raise that because I'm just curious where your passion for this space comes from. What drives you?
So I think, fortunately, like any good security person, that you have to have pretty much a love of learning to be in this field, because if you don't keep up, you get left behind, and that occurs very, very quickly. And I think for me, fortunately, the time I spent as a regulator, I was able to look at these things of how does tech innovation really impact the broader banking and financial communities, and look at, what are some of the prohibiting factors that keep banks from being able to enter into this field from a regulatory point of view, but also what are some of the technological concerns, and what are some of the security challenges, because it brings, several new security challenges with it that, I guess, if you use the current vernacular, that haven't been historically part of security 2.0. And it also
Hmm.
changes the role of the CISO and the security team, that you have to be very integrated with the business, because since we are talking about, digital assets now, uh, there is no undo button.
I'm curious about all of that and how that's shaping up into maybe a world that has some maybe insurance mechanisms, perhaps out there. I mean, I'm based in Miami, and I remember when the mayor of Miami pronounced Miami as the, crypto city of the future. And there was a lot of exuberance about where things were evolving, and people were running around with their portable keys for their various currencies, and there was certainly a worry about security, but there was also kind of like a nervousness about it. Tell me a little bit about where we are right now in terms of the security in the crypto space.
So I think it's definitely evolved pretty well. The wallet security for the most part is pretty strong. I think, there's still some of the key factors, like, social engineering and phishing are big factors for people accidentally giving up their seed phrase, or people gaining access to their wallets. I think it's going to continue to evolve in that space, and, whether it makes it to full currency status versus, a lot of people kind of treat it like a commodity now, where they're accumulating it because they expect it to go up in value. Then in that case, it acts, less like a currency. But in either case, I think, the wallets are getting better. I think, for it to go completely mainstream, there still needs to be more, I guess, education and more understanding around, the wallets, and more understanding around what it means, from a blockchain perspective. Uh,
Hmm.
and I think we're getting there. I think there's still a little ways to go, but I think not only from an digital asset front, but from, the innovation that this technology will bring over the next couple of years, I think it's going to be pretty significant.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I mean, let's talk about those next couple of years. So here we are in 2024, starting the year out. We hear about things like the Bitcoin ETF, and people that were naysayers are suddenly excited again. And what's on the docket for this year with GSR, and what are you seeing out there in the market?
So I'd say now that fortunately, with the ETFs being approved, and I think, the regulators understanding that, at least from the U.S. point of view, and again, it's my opinion, that,
Hmm.
that there are things that can and should be done to increase, to, I guess, improve the clarity of the space. Because, as somebody that's active in this space, we're happy to adhere to regulatory guidance, but we need clarity around that, as far
Hmm.
as what the expectations are. So I think the clarity will be coming. And I know, a lot of other countries are leading the way in that space because they want to encourage and foster the continued development in this space. So that will keep driving the industry forward. And I think, as you mentioned, with, the approval of the different, the Bitcoin ETFs, that's also going to kind of bring some of the players back into the space of, the ones that we're looking at, the different tokens and technology within blockchain, of, what are the innovative solutions coming out of it. And, now that it's starting to get more recognition again, that should bring, I guess, a restart to some more of the innovation that we've been seeing in the space.
Well, I imagine that you are probably in such a unique position in the world of crypto because you have sat on the other side of the fence, so to speak, right? You know kind of what's on the mind of the regulator, and you also know now, obviously, what is happening with innovation and where the markets are headed. So it sounds like GSR is very, very well positioned. If someone wanted to learn more about what you and the GSR team are up to, where's the best place to reach you?
So I would say definitely, start with the website, as far as, gsr.io, from the research that's out there, as well as, we do put out newsletters and other information that our traders put out on a regular basis. So I would definitely say start there. Always do your homework in this space, because unfortunately, sometimes imposters pop up. Other organizations will even pop up trying to impersonate us. So it's
Mhm.
still, you still have to do your own due diligence.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, GSR.io, take a look, folks. David, it's been great talking with you. I feel a lot better now. I have my little wallet of assets, and I purchased even some digital objects along the way. So perhaps maybe I'll keep them, and
I
and
definitely
maybe they'll be worth something.
I mean, it's definitely a fascinating space to be part of, because I think the evolution that we're seeing from, just the crypto market space is helping evolve this whole category, of blockchain technology itself. So, yeah, I enjoy it as a security professional because it's something new, but I think the broader application is going to be pretty significant. Just like when I first started in cloud years ago, when cloud was only out, 1 year or something like that, everybody was like, well, who's actually going to use it? And now when you look at it, the stats show that, 80% of the world is using cloud. I
Yeah.
suspect that, there'll be a similar adoption in the digital asset front, where, while everything may not look like Bitcoin or Ethereum, I suspect that it will gain broad acceptance. I think the
Yeah.
timeline is a little longer, though, but it will be there.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's a really great way of looking at it. Perhaps we started in a place where things were given a kind of brand name and they were put out there, but in reality, the way this technology is, it's foundational. It will restructure the way we think about really all aspects of the marketplace. And so it's really, really an exciting time. And thank you so much, David, for coming and providing clarity on how things are evolving and telling us about what GSR is up to. We've been speaking with David Cass. He is the managing director and the chief information security officer of GSR. GSR has 10 years of deep crypto market expertise as a market maker and an active multi-stage investor. They build long-term relationships by offering exceptional service and trading capabilities tailored to the specific needs of their clients. We've been talking to David Cass about really where the market is today, how things have evolved, how things are really shaping up for the near future. And really, I think this seems to be a time for folks to perhaps think about this more seriously. So it's a great time. And David, I'm glad that you're leading the charge. So thank you so much for being on the Uncaged show today, and we look forward to having you back.
Thanks for having me.